launching our summit.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to Mexico. Welcome to the Giving Circle Summit. My name is Juan Carlos Diaz Bilbao. I'm a network driver for the BMW Foundation's Responsible Leaders Network, and I'll be your host for today's summit. Hope you had the chance to fix yourself a hot cup of tea or coffee, since we have 2 mind-blowing hours ahead of us. First, I would like to thank the United States of America's Embassy in Chile for making this amazing summit a reality. Chile's Ministry of Women, which we know these topics are a top priority on your development agenda, as well as a passionate and committed team of Empathy. And of course, a big thank you to all of the marvelous speakers that we're about to hear, as well as Empathy's community for being here. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Maria Jose Abud Ziegler, Women and Gender Equity Under Secretary of the Ministry of Women of Chile, to delight us with some opening remarks. Welcome, Maria Jose.
Muchas gracias, Juan Carlos. Entiendo que puedo hablar en español, ¿no, Rosa?
Sí, perfecto. Hay traducción simultánea, así que siéntete cómoda.
Muy bien. Bueno, lo primero es agradecer la invitación, agradecer a la Embajada de Estados Unidos por hacer esto posible, a Empatthy. La verdad es que como Ministerio de la Mujer y la Equidad de Género, este tipo de iniciativas las valoramos y creemos que es el correcto camino para poder avanzar. Porque la filantropía hoy día es más importante que nunca. Y la filantropía ya no es solo entregar dinero, donaciones monetarias, sino que tiene que ver con cómo armamos redes, cómo levantamos temas importantes para nuestra sociedad y cómo dedicamos nuestro tiempo, nuestros conocimientos y nuestras capacidades a contribuir a nuestra sociedad. Y creemos que estas alianzas entre el sector público, privado, entre la sociedad civil, hoy día más que nunca son importantes para los desafíos que enfrentamos a nivel mundial y especialmente en Chile. Y es ahí donde nuestras mujeres tienen una deuda muy importante y tienen importantes desafíos que me interesa conversar brevemente sobre ellos, porque al final es ahí donde vemos que mujeres, que hoy día son las principales expositoras de este summit, pueden retribuir a otras mujeres, porque al final la agenda de equidad de género, es decir, cómo nosotros avanzamos a una sociedad en que mujeres y hombres tengan las mismas oportunidades, tengan los mismos derechos y deberes, para que eso sea posible necesitamos que ninguna de nosotras se quede atrás, y las que han podido avanzar, las que ya tienen la forma de retribuir al resto, lo puedan hacer. Y en ese sentido nosotros creemos y confiamos en la filantropía como una herramienta para poder mirar los problemas que enfrenta la sociedad y escuchar a aquellos que queremos ayudar, conocer sus problemas. Y cuando nosotros escuchamos y atendemos esas situaciones, muchas veces la solución a los problemas está frente a nosotros. Y solo brevemente para contarles qué hacemos del Ministerio de la Mujer, cuáles son nuestros ejes de trabajo. Nosotros como ministerio estamos enfocados en 4 grandes pilares. El primero es cómo nosotros podemos cerrar todas las barreras legales y las discriminaciones que existen en nuestra legislación que perjudican a nuestras mujeres. Hay mucho de la legislación chilena que, con una buena intención de ayudar, de proteger a la mujer, se hicieron leyes que la verdad es que hoy día muestran que hay una desventaja y generan una discriminación. Por ejemplo, nosotros hace poco teníamos una ley de segundas nupcias que no permitía a la mujer casarse hasta 270 días después del divorcio. ¿Y por qué era esta razón? Esta ley era muy antigua y el objetivo era evitar, asegurar, garantizar el derecho a padre que tuvieran los hijos. Hoy día contamos con métodos de poder conocer la paternidad bien rápido y ya no es necesario esta ley, y este es uno de los avances que hemos hecho como ministerio. El segundo pilar es la autonomía económica de la mujer, y este es fundamental y creo importante traerlo al summit porque ahí es donde tenemos mucho que avanzar. La pandemia ha golpeado fuertemente a mujeres y hombres, pero especialmente a las mujeres. Vemos con preocupación cómo las mujeres en Chile han perdido gran parte de sus ingresos, han salido de la fuerza laboral, y es en este eje de trabajo donde es fundamental buscar soluciones en colaboración con el sector privado, la organización de la sociedad civil, de cómo podemos reincorporar a la mujer al mundo laboral y especialmente en sectores que tradicionalmente en Chile no están y son claves para nuestro sector productivo, como es, por ejemplo, la minería o es la construcción. Nuestro tercer eje de trabajo, que es siempre va a ser el más fundamental, el más importante y el que nos quita el sueño en el ministerio, que es nuestra tolerancia y compromiso a una sociedad con tolerancia cero a la violencia contra la mujer en todas sus formas. Hoy día nosotros vemos con preocupación que 1 de cada 3 mujeres en Chile sufre de violencia. Y la verdad es que esto es algo que no solo en Chile, sino a nivel del mundo, es algo que debemos trabajar como sociedad. Esta no es una tarea solamente que el Estado pueda resolver con políticas, planes y programas, sino que se necesita de un cambio cultural, se necesita de nuevos patrones, de cómo nos relacionamos hombres y mujeres en la sociedad, y es ahí donde también necesitamos de líderes como ustedes para pensar en soluciones creativas, ingeniosas, que permitan a las mujeres algo tan simple como es poder llevar una vida libre de violencia y garantizar su tranquilidad y su bienestar en esta materia. Y un cuarto pilar que es muy importante y también representa mucho a las mujeres que son parte de este summit es cómo nosotros empoderamos a las mujeres. Nosotros queremos, por un lado, que las mujeres puedan tener ingresos propios, pero también queremos que las mujeres hoy día ocupen espacios de liderazgo. Y es ahí donde en Chile vemos todavía que hay tanto espacio por avanzar, si bien hemos logrado de a poco ir instalando en los últimos años la importancia de contar con mujeres en directorios, con mujeres en política, con mujeres en distintos espacios de toma de decisiones, porque nosotras sabemos que las mujeres podemos aportar y tenemos mucho que entregar a la sociedad, y también porque nosotras conocemos desde otro ángulo muchas veces los principales desafíos que enfrenta nuestra sociedad y cómo podemos con soluciones innovadoras solucionar las principales barreras que enfrentan las mujeres, que tienen que ver mucho con cómo compatibilizar también el mundo laboral con el mundo familiar. Por lo tanto, nuestra invitación hoy día y nuestras palabras son de cómo al final creemos que acá tenemos un potencial de trabajo conjunto inimaginable, que la verdad es que este es un punto de partida para nosotros de ojalá tener una agenda en común. Desde el Ministerio de la Mujer y la Equidad de Género, las puertas están abiertas para este tipo de alianzas, para trabajar en conjunto, para buscar soluciones innovadoras. Y la verdad es que hay tanto que hacer, tanto que avanzar, que les dejo solamente esos pilares como modo de inspiración y les agradezco nuevamente la invitación y el también que exista el espacio para pensar en este tipo de cosas y que exista la preocupación también desde Empatthy, desde la Embajada de Estados Unidos y de las distintas panelistas que hoy día nos acompañan. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Maria Jose. I share with you the idea of collaboration as a way to, as a means to untap the potential in the region for gender equity. You set the right tone for today's session. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Eric Cattlefamo, Counselor for Public Affairs of the U.S. Embassy in Chile. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you, Juan Carlos, and thank you, Rosa, and the other organizers for the invitation to speak today. I want to send a special hello and buenos dias to those of my fellow Americans who are joining from the United States. It's really a proud moment for our U.S. Embassy here in Chile to be able to hold up best practices that have been developed over the decades in the United States as examples for our friends and colleagues here in Chile to follow and in turn for us to learn from them. Since we've got so many Chilenos joining us today, I'm going to switch over to Spanish, but did want to say those words of welcome for folks joining from the United States. Pues gracias nuevamente para la invitación para estar en este encuentro en representación de la Embajada de los Estados Unidos. Estamos muy contentos de haber podido contribuir a su realización. Y para mí en personal es un honor muy importante, ya que yo conocí a Rosa como un grupo de, no recuerdo bien si era 10 o 12, pero un gran grupo de de 10 mujeres filántropas que viajaban a los Estados Unidos hace casi 3 años ya en un viaje de intercambio organizado con el apoyo de nuestra embajada aquí en Santiago. Y el intento de este intercambio fue justo para realizar eventos como hoy, para poder compartir las experiencias en el marco de la filantropía de los Estados Unidos y aquí en Chile y en realidad en toda la región. Nosotros sabemos desde hace mucho tiempo en Estados Unidos que la filantropía contribuye enormemente al desarrollo. Es algo que impulsa a la educación, la medicina, el emprendimiento, las artes y el bien social. Yo creo que eso es algo que hemos visto particularmente en el año pasado durante la pandemia, porque sabemos, y yo lo voy a decir muy claramente como representante del gobierno, que gobiernos no pueden resolver todos los problemas, no pueden enfrentar todas las retas que una sociedad tiene. Entonces es importantísimo que haya una sociedad civil involucrada. Y la filantropía es una de las mejores maneras de tener esta participación. De hecho, la filantropía no solo satisface un deseo natural de ayudar, de contribuir, pero también promueve la democracia. ¿Cómo? Porque la filantropía permite a los individuos decidir qué es lo más importante y urgente desde una mirada estratégica y a largo plazo. Como estamos aquí hoy durante el mes de la historia de la mujer y con un enfoque especial en los Women Giving Circles, quiero destacar que las mujeres filántropas en particular son excepcionales como impulsoras de cambio y como desarrolladoras comunitarias. Son hermanas, hijas, madres, amigas y mujeres compasivas, comprometidas también durante todas sus carreras y a lo largo de sus vidas. Nuestra embajada ha aportado en forma directa para la realización de este seminario y de este intercambio continuo entre los grupos de filántropas de Estados Unidos y Chile. Y nuevamente para nosotros es un honor ver esta exitosa conclusión de un proceso de un intercambio que ya lleva muchos meses y en realidad muchos años. Para concluir, les deseo lo mejor en este encuentro y espero que renueve sus energías, que convoque a más mujeres y que las acerque a todos para beneficiar a Chile y a su gente. Muchas gracias. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. I believe it will do. It will do. On behalf of all of Empathy's team, we thank you, Eric, for believing in the catalyzing power of this summit to change the conversation about women leadership in the social investment space. No doubt that this summit is a stepping stone. It's going to serve as a stepping stone for movement building across the region. So hopefully the first one of quite a bunch. With this in mind, let us move forward. Up next, we got an engaging and interactive interview with my fellow responsible leader and dear friend, Rosa Madera. Her father is from Spain and her mother is from Cuba, but with an Ibero-American heart. She's one of the most passionate, committed, and inspiring leaders that I know of in the Latin American Spain venture and philanthropy space. A social entrepreneur, a mover and shaker, and with the brightest smile and a significant overdose of empathy, Rosa is going to interview a thought leader and global reference for the topic that convenes us today, Sondra Shaw Hart, a true legend. He's the founder and president of Women's Giving Circles International, dedicating almost 35 years to expand women's significant philanthropic impact. She co-founded the Women's Philanthropy Network, which is now called the Women's Philanthropy Institute and housed at the Lilly Center on Philanthropy at the Indiana University. We're going to do a deep dive into why it is important to promote giving circles in Latin America. Take it from here, dear Rosa.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, American Embassy, Minister of Women in Chile. Thank you, all my speakers. This project, yeah, is for many years. As Eric said, I was in the 2018 with 10 women looking for different projects, tendencies, instruments to bring to Chile. And one of the ones that I liked a lot was Giving Circles. What is what's happening with Giving Circles? What was happening with the women in philanthropy? Always knowing and seeing that in Chile, there were many family enterprises where the leaders were the women, but the women were not doing this approach in their projects. So I'm so happy. We should make this summit last year, 20,000 in Chile. I had the flights already that year with Sondra was coming, Karma was coming. I have to do all the change. COVID didn't help us. We know everybody book at times, but the American Embassy told me, okay, Rosa, let's do it 2021 virtually. So here we are with all of you. I'm so happy because I'm all the time reading about what the Women in Philanthropy Institute, Jenny, said. I'm so happy because Sondra always was like a pioneer and a person, you know, all the things that she's doing. Carmen working in international giving circles and in philanthropy since many years, and Sarah, that is almost Chilean already, Spanish from Mexico, working in the States, in California with the Latino community. So very happy to be here. I'm very honored to have an interview with Sondra. Sondra, as you said, is a pioneer. I like pioneer people. I don't like the people that they do the things like the other ones. No, you have to break paradigms and see it. It's not easy to break paradigms. It's not easy to bring new things to the ecosystem. I know, I'm social entrepreneur, so I think that it's not easy to every day to try to change, systematic change, to do new things. So thank you, Sondra. Thank you, Sondra, for being here. You know that you are in Miami. You are not in the States, right? You're in the States, but in another mood. So thank you for being here with me today. And yes, I want to introduce you, and I want to ask you some questions, because as Juan Carlos said, we can say that you are the co-founder for the Modern Women's Philanthropy Movement. What is this movement, Sondra? What it means?
Well, thank you, Rosa, for your diligence and patience. And we are delighted to be here, Carmen and I from Women's Giving Circles International. Never thought it would happen. Sorry that it took almost a year for you to get our very expensive plane ticket money back. But here we are in a different form than we thought we would be. Well, let me share a little bit of history. It was 1988, and I met a woman named Martha Taylor, who was a vice president of the foundation at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And she said to me, now this is a me who's been only raising money for political campaigns, and always from men. And she said, are you interested in women in philanthropy? And I thought she meant women who raise money. No, she didn't. She couldn't figure out, and I think this applies to every one of our organizations and institutions. She couldn't figure out why women who were students at the university, and there were more women than men who were alums of the university, why they weren't getting more money. She could not figure that out. And so she started an organization which was like a giving circle in 1988. And it was women who were chosen because they had given $20,000 to the university to be part of a group to help raise more money from women. And in the meantime, she had received a request to write an article about career women and their giving. And she asked me if I would help her. Well, neither of us knew anything about career women and their giving. In fact, I didn't know anything about women in giving. So we did some focus groups, and we found out that women give for 6 reasons. They give because they want to change things and make things better. They want to create something in response to a human need. They want to commit to the organization that they're they're part of. They want to connect, they want to see the face that their gift impacts, and they want to collaborate with other women. Women like the social part of giving circles, and they want to celebrate one another's giving and their own. So fast forward several years, actually when I was writing this for you, Rosa, I realized that I have 11 pages, and I think some of those would be good posts someplace. So it made me really go back a long way. So Martha decided we needed to have a national conference on and to set a women's philanthropy agenda. Now, these are all things that you all can do, no matter whether you're in Latin America or the States. So we did, we got the funding for it. We brought women in from all over the country to set a national agenda for women's philanthropy. And that was in 1991. And you know, all of the things, I believe there were 10 outcomes, they have all come true, plus, plus, plus. So then we set up something called, it was a precursor to the Women's Philanthropy Institute. And it was called the National Network of Women Philanthropists, because there was an article in 1991 in the New York Times that we didn't even know was going to come out. But a stringer for the New York Times had come to, or was a graduate of UW-Madison. And so she came to a luncheon that the president's wife put on, and we had a speaker about women's philanthropy. And it was a huge article in the New York Times. Now, can you imagine having something like that happen, just happen? But it brings up another really important point about giving circles. Women journalists love to write about women's giving circles. They love it. They made us. They made women's giving circles. So we were getting calls from all over the United States, and we decided we had to do something formal. So that's when we became part of the university.
Let me ask you many other questions, because I want to give you
okay, all right, okay.
Because you have so much knowledge that you can speak here like 2 hours. That's okay. It's an interview, it's not a monologue.
Yes,
So
right.
Another question will be great if you can answer to me. That will be, how do you inspire women and girls to give funds, as like the Women Moving Millions, no? How was that? Women Moving Millions was an important fundraising organization. And how do you inspire them? Can you tell me more about that, please?
Sure. Well, Women Moving Millions, I think, has been so important here, because people just never thought, first of all, that women would talk about money, and then that they would give money and let their name be known. They weren't wanting to be anonymous. And so that happened. And I remember when they first reached 250 million, I think that was their original goal. And I was speaking at a group someplace, and I announced that, and the women there had not heard of this. It was a Power of the Purse event. They hadn't heard of Women Moving Millions. And when I announced it, they stood up and clapped and shouted hooray. So it really brought to the attention of everybody that women have the money to give, and they will give it. And they gave all of their money to women and girls. So that was very, very important that they brought that cause, which was pretty neglected. They brought that cause to the forefront. It was kind of like a giving circle, because every woman had to give $1 million. And we are delighted. They are now, I believe they have lowered the expectation, I think maybe $500,000, but I think they're at 500 million or more now. So they've really raised the bar of women's giving.
If I tell you, Sondra, empathy and women, can you answer me what comes to your head?
Sure. Well, we've done a lot of Martha and I in the early years did a lot of conversations with women, and we found out the differences between women's and men's giving. And fortunately, these differences, Jeannie has, at the Women's Philanthropy Institute, has has confirmed them with real research, with quantitative research. But women are much more empathetic than men are. And women are generous if they care about something that is happening. And empathy is something that women feel. You know, women really have had an introduction to a lot of the problems of the world. Women's health, education, equality, jobs, and so they empathize. And I noticed and this was one of your questions, but I'm going to insert it here, that with the COVID, one of the women's giving circles that I belong to in Michigan, we had 2 virtual asks, and we also sent it out through the post office. We raised more money, 3 times more money through those asks during the COVID than we ever did at our dinners. And we know that it's because the women were empathizing with the women who were suffering from COVID.
We have many questions, but we don't have more time because we have other 3 speakers more. So Juan Carlos, please. Thank you, Sondra. Like, I can ask you many other questions, and I think you can tell me many things. But I think why was the interview? Because Sondra is like that. He knows a lot about this movement, about the funds, about the giving circles. She was in different areas in the sector. So thank you, Sondra. Thank you, Sondra, for this interview.
Thank you very much, Sondra and Rosa. I believe that this interview provides us with the right framing of the opportunity and relevance of women in philanthropy for the region. I mean, the numbers that you shared, Sondra, are outstanding. For me, it's just mind-blowing. You left us wanting more, but there will be time at the end for a Q&A session. So make sure to write down your questions and send them to us. We'll be waiting for those questions. Next, I'm more than happy to present a seasoned finance executive with more than 25 years of solid track record on global giving and philanthropy, both on the public and private sector. Currently, Carmen Stevens is the Executive Director of Women's Giving Circles International, and she's going to share with us how she sees giving circles as a natural extension of activism. Please, Carmen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Juan Carlos, and echoes of thanks to all that have joined us this morning in the States and this afternoon in the Global South. Welcome. And I am just excited and honored to be included in this group to speak with you about the importance of women's giving. And building upon the segment that was just presented, Rosa had asked me to cover kind of a broad topic in the sense that women's foundations and women's funds and education, or excuse me, institutional giving could be a summit each themselves. So I'm going to try to give you an overview of women's giving from those perspectives and how women's giving circles can be incorporated. Matisse, if you'd like to advance the slide. Since this topic is so broad, as I've mentioned, I've kind of refined it into a North American overview and followed on by some examples in the Global South, particularly in the Ibero-American region. And then I want to leave you with some comments of encouragement about what's next for each of your organizations, or potentially as individuals who are looking to become more involved in giving and supporting women and girls in the achievement of the good life. All right, so women in North America have been giving to their communities since currency was established. But it wasn't until recently that women's giving was recognized by institutions. Even the women themselves that were giving didn't identify as philanthropists. Based in large part by the women's movement and the civil rights movement, in the States, which began over 40 years ago, and the subsequent increase of women in the workforce earning their own money, and in some cases, more than their male counterparts. Women began to be noticed by institutions for their monetary resources. As these monetary resources increased, women began to dictate the purpose of their giving within these institutional constructs and demanded that they would be different. And many of these women took the lead in funding programs specifically for women and girls. And as Sandra noted, they did so in ways that men traditionally had not. They elected to join with other women in funding networks and in more recent terms and years, giving circles. Next slide, please. And that's where we're going to start today, with women's foundations. And I further refined these to those foundations that were specifically created to support the needs of women and girls. Many were started, 4 decades ago, as I mentioned, and they still remain relatively small from a financial standpoint. But they are being more and more anchored by the mega foundations. One of them we just talked about, Giving Networks / hybrid circle model, Women Moving Millions. But you can also note the definition of prioritizing women and girls initiatives from the mega foundations on a global scale, including the Gates Foundation. And as we continue to go through the slides that will be following this, you'll see examples of foundations and funds that I hope you'll take a moment after the summit to look a little bit further into. Women's foundations in North America are both public and private. And in fact, there are more and more foundations that are even further defined by their corporate cross-branding, as the founders are women who have assumed leadership roles in large corporations. And while their purpose is primary and will always remain supporting women and girls, these foundations are also increasingly intersectional. For women, innately understand the multi-layered approaches that are needed to fund successfully. This intersectionality was demonstrated in this sector's ability to pivot and address the effects of COVID-19, which, as we have mentioned in previous comments, has disproportionately affected women throughout the world. Women's foundations in North America have become commonplace, with most states in America having their own women's foundation, and even major cities throughout the US and Canada having foundations as well. Their financial impact has been estimated to be, and I say this tongue in cheek, as low as $500 million to as high as $2.5 billion annually. Noting that women's giving hasn't always been counted as true women's giving on the continent. So it could be, and I dare to say it is, way more than that. But that discussion is for another summit. Most women's foundations are funding initiatives within their own countries, with a few notable exceptions. And in lockstep with this increased intersectionality. Leverage and global giving is on the upswing, with women's foundations working with one another to address common needs despite geography. Next slide, please. Before we delve into women's funds as part of a network, I'm going to talk a little bit and make a pit stop at the topic of community foundations, which are widely popular in North America. Really gaining ground 25 to 30 years ago in most locations, community foundations offer donors the ability to support their communities and invest their donations with others within the foundation itself to do similar activities without attending to the day-to-day operations required when starting their own foundations. Many liked the ability to create a donor-advised fund at the community foundation, which essentially was the gifting of money to the community foundation and outlining an approach to spending that money for annual distribution based on the foundation's investment return. Donor-advised funds offer tax incentives as well, and at most community foundations, the threshold to create such a fund was relatively small, allowing for many more people to support a community as philanthropists, which they might not have even considered themselves as before this. It's not a stretch to understand that many of these new donors were women, and as such, many donor advised funds were created to support women and girls. In addition, many community foundations throughout North America also offered field of interest funds, which I liken to the intersectionality movement of the community foundation sector, as field of interest funds further delineated root causes of things like poverty and equity for women and girls, based on such mitigating factors as race and geography. The estimated grant impact of donor advised funds at community foundations in the States alone is over 25 billion annually. And this sector of women's giving is really starting to leverage new ways of gifting abroad within sectors previously ignored by institutions like the LGBTQ community. Next slide, please. Not all women are keen to participate in the more traditional institutional models of giving, such as those found within foundations. Sorry, Matisse, one back, please. For these women, participation in a fund is a better fit and offers the additional flexibility and collaboration with others that they desire. Sandra spoke to the fact that women love to collaborate and create together. Women's funds have been around for as long as the foundations have, and many for even longer, as women have been collectively supporting their sisters without recognition and formality for some time. And for that reason, the exact number of funds in the States or even on the North American continent is constantly changing. But for those women's funds that have created a structure, and more so those who have elected to participate within a network of women with common goals, it's there that we see that the funds are often the first places where women learn about gender lens philanthropy. And given their nimbleness, often women's funds are leading by example for their often larger women foundation counterparts when it comes to new ways to encourage philanthropy and drive social change. Overwhelmingly, funds have been focused on education for women and girls, but not just for their grantees. Many women's funds have educational components for the grant makers themselves, furthering the philanthropic journey of the donor and cementing their continued commitment to philanthropy. The impact of women's funds continues to grow. And in the States alone, the estimate of giving from just the members of Women's Funding Network alone, which is listed on the slide, is close to $500 million annually. These funds are further poised to define gender lens philanthropy as we know it. And in the last few years, women's funds have seen a shift toward advocacy, with the pandemic only serving to solidify their missions of equity and global change. While women's foundations and community foundations do host women's giving circles, most circles are born from a women's fund mentality of flexibility and collaboration. Knowing that Sarah will be addressing this subject in detail, I won't go too deep on the topic, aside from sharing with you that community-centered circles and networks of circles are shifting to a globally focused approach with additional scaling efforts, including education on investing dollars in support of desired change. Women's Giving Circles International, Philanthropy Now, and others are helping incubate circles around the world in support of women and girls. And I say hello to all of those who are part of our network who have chosen to join this important summit. We are leveraging lessons learned from successful circles in North America. We offer tools to create circles and help to find members at every step of the circle creation process to define what women's philanthropy looks and feels like in the communities being served by the circle. Next slide, please. So if we switch to a look at what's happening in this region of the world, there's no surprise that here as well, women have also been giving since the establishment of currency. Giving here is also indigenous and part of each region's individuality from a cultural perspective. To call it grassroots is accurate, as women's giving in many regions is just beginning to be formalized in what we would consider institutionalized. However, we should correct those that see grassroots as not being sophisticated. In many ways, the sophistication of giving by women in Ibero-America outpaces other regions of the globe. Much of that sophistication is born out of the activist backbones of women in this space and inventive ways that they are supporting women and girls while negotiating multi-layered systems of inequity. Next slide, please. Just as in North America, women are involved in the creation of foundations, both public and private. Ella's certainly echoes the grassroots activism and calls for equity that more and more women are raising their voices to and donating their monies toward in South America. And as more women from this region of the world assume leadership roles within companies, private donors such as Angelica Fuentes, who created a foundation that bears her name in Mexico, will serve as examples of women's philanthropists who look like and come like from places like me, unquote. With different tax structures and cultural norms around philanthropy, community foundations have yet to take hold throughout this region, with limited exceptions such as Comunala in Mexico and the Global Fund for Community Foundations, both of which are scaling a hybrid community foundation network structure in support of the creation of more community foundations and women's giving circles and associated programming throughout the global South. As in the States, your women's funds are proliferating and serving as models for change and mentors for new funds and programs, such as women's giving circles. We're 2 slides ahead. The last slide about living the good life, please. So as I leave you today to think about all of the stuff that I've just said and that to come, I leave you with these 4 words. As each of you pursue the good life for women and girls, know that your sisters in North America and around the globe are here to support your emergent work, especially in the advocacy space, as you raise your voices and join together to mobilize what often starts as human and material capital in pursuit of equity. Know that by illuminating your good work, the money will follow. Embed those lessons learned in your social impact strategies and weave them into the cultural fabrics of your communities. Just as you have the indigenous traditions that have built strong women throughout your regions. And finally, Teach our girls not only of their history, but of their power to build upon the changes you create so that they may amplify your impact for generations to come. Thank you so much for having me with you.
Thank you very much, Carmen. You shared with us a bunch of inspiring stories. Also, I love that you point out tools, resources that can help us overcome the challenges that we have in the region, in Latin America and in Spain, that are have similarities with your context, but sure that we have a lot of work ahead. I don't know if you guys agree, but we need to meet again to keep learning about women giving, which, by the way, a new report on the subject was recently released by the Women's Philanthropy Institute, in case the audience wants to have some additional references. And I'm sure that our next speaker is going to share with us some key learnings and main takeaways. Jeannie Sager is the director of the Women's Philanthropy Institute, WPI, focused on conducting and disseminating research, action-based research that grows women's philanthropy. Jeannie is a seasoned nonprofit executive with 25 years of experience in healthcare, in higher education, and independent school leadership. Welcome, Jeannie. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And I'm so thrilled to be here with all of you today. It's truly an honor and a privilege. And I always accept any invitation to serve on a panel with Sandra, Carmen, and Sarah. They are true trailblazers in the women's philanthropy space. So anytime this invitation comes along, I will take it. So if Matthias could pull my presentation slide deck up for me, we can get started. And I look forward to sharing with all of you some research from the Women's Philanthropy Institute. So again, my name is Jeannie Sager, and I have the real privilege of serving as the director of the Women's Philanthropy Institute. For those of you who may not be familiar with WPI, we are the only research institute in the world dedicated solely to the study of gender and philanthropy. And we are located at the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, which happens to be the only school of philanthropy in the world as well. So very fortunate to be here and to be able to work at the school. Next slide, please. If you take anything away from my presentation today, I hope it is this, that the bottom line is that gender matters in philanthropy. And today, we're going to take a quick trip through 2 decades of WPI research to learn how it can inform your own philanthropy and women's philanthropy in Ibero-America. And at WPI, we believe that to solve challenges, large and small, our world needs more strategic philanthropy. And I'm excited to share with you why we believe engaging better with women as donors will help women's philanthropy reach its full power and potential. I'm going to let Matthias maybe advance us a couple slides. Next slide. Here we go. Women can lead this charge for more strategic philanthropy, harnessing their growing wealth and influence to create a more just, equitable, and healthy society. By most measures, today's demographic changes benefit women. You know this and you see it every day. More and more women have increased access to education, income, and wealth. And these are key predictors of philanthropy. At the same time, more women are the primary breadwinner in their families, more women are financially independent, and some reports suggest that 90% of women are the chief financial officers of their households. And these factors are central to women's expanding role in philanthropy. Women's wealth is rising. Today, women hold about 40% of global wealth. And the Boston Consulting Group says that by 2025, women will have accumulated assets worth $110 trillion. Women are also expected to inherit 70% of the wealth that will be passed down over the next 2 generations. And women tend to inherit twice, once from their parents and then from their spouse. Women are also more likely to give. And our research at WPI shows that women's growing wealth is good news for the philanthropic sector. Across all ages, races, and income levels, women give more and give differently than their male counterparts. Not only that, but we found that the more women's wealth grows, the more they will give to charitable organizations. And how women think about wealth differs too. According to a United States Trust study, women are nearly twice as likely as men to say that giving to charity is the most satisfying aspect of having wealth. Next slide. So in order to unlock the full potential of women's philanthropy, we must understand how gender shapes giving behavior. To build a powerful and diverse force of female philanthropists, we need to know more about what drives women to give. The Women's Philanthropy Institute exists for that reason, to conduct, curate, and disseminate rigorous research that grows women's philanthropy. Matthias, do you want to go to 2 slides? And so WPI's focus is on research about gender and philanthropy. And this field of study is reasonably new. WPI released its first study in 2010, and few studies before that have considered gender as a factor in its work. And since 2010, though, we have built an amazing reservoir of findings that point to one undeniable fact: gender matters in philanthropy. Next slide. After all, men and women are different in so many ways. If we just consider the field of fundraising here in the United States and globally, it really was created only in the 1960s, at a time when men, predominantly white men, were presumed to be the primary donor. And that is no longer true. In fact, I read a 2020 report from Blackbaud that says that your average donor is a 64-year-old woman. Donors are men and women. They are all ages, races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, religions and no religion, local and, as we see here, across the globe. And so fundraising strategies must adapt to the changing environment and understand that men and women have different motivations for giving and different patterns of giving. I want to stress, one is not better than the other. They are simply different. And women are driving philanthropy today in bold ways at the grassroots level, in corporate boardrooms, as individual philanthropists, in giving circles, and as leaders in nonprofits. And the best is yet to come as more women step fully into their philanthropic power and bring others alongside them. Next slide. Our research spans a range of topics, from retirement to giving circles, to impact investing, to the transmission of generosity. And across these topics, we apply a gender lens to better understand where, how, and why women and men give differently. Our entire body of research can be found online at our website, and I encourage you to explore and engage in our work. And while our research is focused on North America and the United States, I think that you will see many data points that resonate for how you are experiencing women's philanthropy in South America. So let's explore some of our research and address who, how, why, where, and what. Next slide. So who is philanthropic, and how do demographic factors affect giving by women and men? When we look at how factors such as age, family dynamics, marital status, and income influence giving by men and women, the bottom line is that women, all women, across racial and ethnic groups and generations, are more likely than their male counterparts to give. And the data about single women in particular is compelling. For example, across race, ethnicity, and income levels, single women are more likely to give than single men. And when looking across generations, Generation X and millennial single women are holding their own in terms of giving, compared to pre-boomer women from 40 years ago. And giving trends seem to hold true across the life cycle. Around retirement, we found that single women and married couples are more likely to give and give more than single men. And they also volunteer more than single men. And what about marriage? Marriage affects giving in positive ways. We know that being married increases both the likelihood and the amount of giving. Marriage is good for charitable giving. Married and cohabitating couples tend to give more to charity than single men or single women. And while most couples make giving decisions jointly, women are more likely than men to be the sole decider. And in our latest Women Give report, we found that this holds true online as well as offline. More women than men give gifts on social and online platforms. Next slide. And women are drawn to an expanded definition of philanthropy. And in our Women Give 2019 report, we encouraged women from all backgrounds to fully understand that diverse acts of generosity are both formal and informal definitions of the word, rooted in this idea of giving back. And research shows that women tend to give more than money, using their time, their expertise, their advocacy, and their networks to apply all of their resources to work for good. This is especially important for communities of color, where women can be seen as bridge builders within philanthropy, embracing a rich and broad definition of philanthropy and using their giving to celebrate and support their communities. Many women are interested in building a relationship with an organization, perhaps through volunteering, leadership, or educational opportunities prior to giving to it. But once engaged, women tend to be more loyal donors and give more over time to the causes in which they are actively engaged beyond just giving dollars. Next slide, and we'll move to talking about behavior. How do women and men give? Which platforms and approaches do they use when it comes to their philanthropy? Research shows broad gender differences in how women and men use the internet and social networks and how they give. Women use tech platforms more than men, and they give more than men online. On digital platforms and social media, women give nearly 2/3 of total online gifts, more than 50% of total dollars, and they give to smaller charitable organizations and smaller sized online gifts. Charitable organizations, fundraisers, and digital platforms can engage a more diverse set of donors by adopting a broader definition of philanthropy, building trust by helping donors find the causes that align with their preferences, and foster community both online and in person. A WPI study about Giving Tuesday donors found that women are more likely than men to give on that special day. And while giving goes up sharply for both men and women on Giving Tuesday, and they give approximately equal amounts, women's greater participation means greater total donations. And as all of my partners on this panel are talking about today, women like to give together. And with the exponential growth of giving circles over the past 10 years, women continue to comprise the majority of collective giving network members. About 70% of all giving circles report that women make up more than half their membership. And Sarah is going to share with you later why giving circles are a real force to be reckoned with in philanthropy. So let's go to why. Next slide. Why do men and women give? And how do these motivations influence their giving? So as we talked about earlier, when Rosa was talking with Sandra, empathy motivates women's giving. For men, giving is often more about self-interest. Now, this is a matter of degree and priority. It's not that men are not empathetic, but because women are socialized into more helping, nurturing, and caring roles from an early age, these behaviors become ingrained and become the basis for many of their actions, including philanthropy. Empathy also drives women's deep engagement with nonprofits. Research has shown that women are more likely to give to organizations where they have a personal connection or an alignment with political or philosophical beliefs. Single women are more likely than single men to cite being on a board or volunteering for an organization as motivations for their giving. And in general, women are less motivated than men by tax advantages and public recognition. They are highly motivated by connections to and volunteering for the causes they care about. So the gifts of time, talent, testimony, and ties are very important to a woman's gift of treasure. Next slide, and we'll talk about where. Where do women give? And how do certain factors affect the causes that they support? So let's talk about causes broadly first. Outside of women's and girls' causes, women tend to give more often and higher amounts to religion and youth and family. And when women give collectively, they also tend to focus on women and girls and education. The commonality we find is that women tend to support causes that they connect with personally, that they have experience with, or that they can touch and see. So of course, women are more likely than men to give to women and girls, but men still give. They tend to be motivated to give by the women in their lives, or having a woman with a significant cause that's important to them. For example, breast cancer. And so if you care about women's and girls' causes, it's important to increase support because rising levels of giving matters. In a study we did on social norms, we learned that when men perceive that other men and women are donating to these causes, they are more likely to donate. So people are paying attention and following each other's examples. Matthias, can we advance 2 slides to the photo of Melinda Gates? So prominent women philanthropists like Melinda Gates reveal a new era in women's philanthropy, where women are purposefully adopting platforms to leverage their philanthropy and exert influence on others. Next slide. And Melinda Gates and others are deliberate and intentional about a focus on giving to women and girls because there is room to grow. Of the 47,000 organizations in the United States, only 3.3% are designated girls. And this last bit of research, you can stay on this slide. The last bit of research I want to share is the so what, the outcomes. What difference does giving make? So giving makes us all happier. It is satisfying. Across the board, the more a household gives as a percentage of income, the higher the household's life satisfaction. But single men see the greatest increase in life satisfaction when they become donors. Single and married women see a greater boost in life satisfaction when they increase their giving as a percentage of their income. So simply stated, men are happier when they give. Women are happier when they can give more. Next slide. The research is powerful because it allows individuals to connect their personal experiences to the broader philanthropic landscape. It provides empirical data to help change assumptions and attitudes and behaviors around perceptions of who is philanthropic. It can be a tool to help women donors advocate for the kind of engagement they wish to have with the nonprofits that they support, perhaps to open up more opportunities for board service and leadership or special events that are designed for them. And it can be a sounding board, a wake-up call, and a valuable resource to carry forward on your own philanthropic journey. Tangible, credible, empirical evidence of the vital role that women play in philanthropy. Next slide. So as you think about your work and how to better engage women, here are some suggestions from our research for you to be more fully engaged and strategic. Ask her. Women do and can make big gifts, and the research shows that this is happening across generations. Make sure that you engage everyone in the household and don't make assumptions about who is on lead regarding household or philanthropic decisions. Understand that women's preferences for stewardship and acknowledgement of their gifts may be different than men. Most importantly, try and involve women in your organization's work from all different aspects and allowing them to use all of the resources to support your mission. Help identify what women are most passionate about and raise their sights towards larger gifts by having the conversation, listening and responding appropriately. But also realize that women may take longer to decide about their giving. Recognize that women are also paying attention, especially when it comes to issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only in the stories that you tell, but also in leadership positions, especially boards. Next slide. And remember, as all of us on the panel will talk about today, that women's social networks and word of mouth can be very powerful marketing tools, strategies. Spend some time reflecting on your own giving. Does it match your values? And does it encompass all the ways that you give back? And place a value on your time and talent and testimony as a full picture of your philanthropy. I'd also encourage you to revisit your giving plan on an annual basis to help hold yourself accountable. Model giving. In our 2018 Transmission of Generosity study, we found that this is especially important for daughters who are much more influenced by seeing their parents model giving and volunteering versus being told to do so. Women give collectively, which is why we're here today. So create opportunities for collaborative giving to your organization. And think about the new tools of how people are giving. Impact investing is just one example. We found in our study that women use impact investing to complement their giving, while men use it to replace their giving. Next slide. So philanthropy is growing, knowledge about giving and how to give back is growing, and an awareness of the importance of women and girls and those causes is growing. And a focus on individual giving continues to be paramount, as the latest Giving USA reports show us that 70% of all giving comes from individuals. But when you consider bequests and gifts that come from family foundations, this number grows to nearly 86%. Demographics are shifting dramatically and philanthropy is becoming ever more elastic. 15 years ago, researchers were just beginning to consider gender as a factor in charitable giving. And now we have over 135 data points that we can't share with you in just 15 minutes. So I encourage you to visit our website to learn more. The research suggests that shifts in strategies to engage women and men in ways that appeal to each of them will help grow philanthropy. Last slide. Women's philanthropy, long the backbone of civic engagement, continues to evolve. Today, women contribute their time, talent, treasure, and testimony in innovative, creative, and trailblazing ways. And more women among us are thinking about philanthropy and harnessing this power to do good. As leaders in philanthropy, you have the opportunity to put this growing body of research into practice and truly drive women's philanthropy forward. And I look forward to coming back together in the full group to hear your questions and insights. Thank you so much again for having me here today and allowing me the opportunity to share our work with you.
Thank you very much, Jeannie. You, at least you leave me with tons of ideas and thoughts of regarding these plans, but that we have had for decades now, and there's so much to do in the region. Just a slight provocation. I would wonder if all the family offices and impact investing funds and venture philanthropy organizations in the region just increase in a significant percentage the women leadership in their in decision making regarding their social investment. It will make a huge difference. For me, it has been really interesting. I believe the audience has a lot to digest, and hopefully we have the recording to check it back later on. So thank you very much, Jeannie. And also for this idea that stays in my head in terms of women give different, right? So let's tap that potential. Now I'm gonna, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna switch to Spanish for the last part. Ahora, para el cierre tenemos a mi paisana Sara Lomelín, quien asegura que como latinos las donaciones colectivas están arraigadas en nuestro ADN, ¿no es así, Sara? Sara hoy día es la directora ejecutiva de Philanthropy Together, una organización sin fines de lucro basada en California que se dedica a escalar y crecer el movimiento de filantropía colectiva a nivel global. Antes de fundar Philanthropy Together, Sara fue directora en jefe de filantropía para Opportunity Fund, el prestamista sin fines de lucro más grande de los Estados Unidos. En fin, mucho de qué hablar. Sara, por favor, adelante, compártenos sobre la donación colectiva.
I want to tell you, just other people, yeah, the English people, the speaking English people, how do you say that?
Yeah.
If you want to change the interpretation, we have interpretation right now. So please, you can change your channel so you can also understand what Sarah said, the English people, please. Thank you. Go ahead, sorry. Just
Gracias, Rosa.
Gracias, Juan Carlos, y gracias, Rosa. Y bueno, voy a estar brincando de inglés a español porque hablo un poco de Spanglish. It is an honor to be here with Jeannie and with Carmen and with Sandra, that we have been, you know, in person, and you know, and I met Rosa last year, and so honored to be here with all of you. Pero bueno, un gusto enorme estar en Chile y poder hablar español, y una maravilla de la facilidad que este mundo virtual nos da para estar en diferentes países. Les voy a platicar un poquito de lo que hago, un poquito de los Giving Circles. Voy a compartir mi pantalla. Espérenme un segundo. Ok. ¿Pueden ver todo el mundo mi pantalla?
En este momento se está compartiendo. Sara, aún es blanco. El lienzo,
no, espérame. No.
Se ve el blanco.
Espérame un segundo. Espérame un segundo.
Mejor no mezcles muchos idiomas por las intérpretes, que si no se nos pueden liar, están preocupadas con eso que dijiste de Spanglish.
Ok, perfecto. Entonces no voy a mezclar, no te preocupes.
Porfa.
Ok, ahora sí ya pueden ver la pantalla. ¿Azul?
Perfecto, Sara, adelante.
Ok, bueno, voy a regresarme un poquito al principio, ¿no? ¿Qué es un Giving Circle? Porque creo que hemos estado hablando de los Giving Circles por aquí, los Giving Circles por allá, pero ¿qué es un Giving Circle? Un Giving Circle toma tu mente, tu talento, tus finanzas y convierte el acto de donar en una experiencia colaborativa y social. Los círculos crean comunidades humanitarias y generosas de personas que actúan con propósito, de manera considerada y estratégica, completamente en solidaridad. Y bueno, quiero dejar muy claro que los Giving Circles no son algo nuevo y no son algo que se inventó en los Estados Unidos tampoco. Hay muchísimas iniciativas de filantropía comunitaria en muchos lugares del mundo, con diferentes nombres, ¿no? Por ejemplo, en México podría ser un estilo de tanda, no exactamente como un Giving Circle, pero bueno, por muchísimas generaciones, sobre todo comunidades latinoamericanas, africanas, asiáticas, han tenido una especie de filantropía comunitaria. Los Giving Circles son similares, pero diferentes a lo que es el crowdfunding, los grupos de ayuda mutua, los Giving Days o los Issue Funds, ¿no? Y voy a regresar un poquito a esto. El crowdfunding, que son estas plataformas en donde uno va online y tu mamá o tu primo o alguien te dice, bueno, por favor, estoy apoyando esta causa, ven y apoya, ¿no? Entonces uno va en el internet y hace un donativo y se acabó el asunto, ¿no? Muchas veces a los 2 días uno ni se acuerda de qué donó. Los grupos de ayuda mutua es cuando el mismo grupo se apoya muchas veces con donativos en especie. Giving Days, el mejor ejemplo de esto es Giving Tuesday, que ha sido todo un fenómeno a nivel global. Y Issue Funds es cuando, como Carmen explicaba, ¿no? Hay portafolios también de non-profits que se unen en un paquete para donar. Pero, ¿qué es lo que se tiene que hacer para que exista un Giving Circle? Hay 5 pasos que necesitan existir para que exista un Giving Circle. Antes que nada, un Giving Circle es gente, ¿no? Es un grupo de personas que tienen valores similares, valores compartidos y construyen una comunidad. Entonces, lo primero que necesitas es tener tu grupo de gente, y pueden ser tus amigos, tus vecinos, etcétera, etcétera. Después, bueno, ese grupo habla de una visión común y los valores, primero individuales, tus valores individuales y los valores que van a guiar la forma en que tú donas dinero, y van a encontrar un punto en común. ¿Cuáles son los valores del grupo? Y esto es muy importante que tiene de diferencia un Giving Circle que otras maneras de filantropía comunitaria, porque hay muchas veces que se une un grupo con diferentes perspectivas. Entonces hay mucha riqueza en la discusión, en aprender sobre diferentes causas. Siempre hay un aprendizaje, un ir más allá de solo dar un donativo. El tercer punto es, bueno, el grupo decide en conjunto reunir sus fondos y decidir a qué organización o proyecto van a apoyar. Y todo esto, otra vez, está guiado por los valores del grupo. De ahí, bueno, el grupo va a aportar sus fondos colectivos, ¿no? ¿Y qué es la maravilla de esto? Que se multiplican los donativos por la magnitud del grupo, ¿no? Hay un impacto multiplicado, no solo a nivel de aportación financiera, pero también como Ginny hablaba, ¿no? De tiempo, de talento, de testimonio, ¿no? De historias. Es mucho más rico que nada más un donativo financiero. Y lo más importante de todo, ¿no? Es ir más allá de la donación. Cómo se involucra uno con la organización o el proyecto para crear un mayor impacto. Y esta es la maravilla que tenemos las mujeres, ¿no? Que como comentaba Sondra, Carmen, Ginny, las mujeres no solo donamos. Cuando nosotros nos involucramos con una organización, vamos y somos voluntarias, vamos y nos arremangamos las mangas y decimos de qué otra manera puedo ayudar. Puedo organizar un evento, puedo traer amigos, puedo abrir más puertas. Y eso yo creo que es algo muy importante. Esta me la voy a saltar porque es lo mismo, nada más en resumen, ¿no? Pero lo que quiero decir aquí es que el modelo de Giving Circles también es infinitamente flexible y adaptable. Hay Giving Circles de todos los tamaños y formas. Aquí tengo algunos ejemplos de algunos Giving Circles reales. Carmen mencionó Latino Community Foundation en California. Antes de trabajar en Opportunity Fund, pasé 8 años en Latino Community Foundation y empecé el Latino Giving Circle Network, que es una red de Giving Circles en California. Hay 23 Giving Circles ahora, que se ha convertido en el network de donantes latinos más grande de Estados Unidos. Uno de esos 23 Giving Circles es Latinos in Tech Giving Circle. Es un Giving Circle formado por latinos, jóvenes latinos que trabajan en empresas de tecnología, desde empresas muy grandes como Google, Facebook, hasta pequeños startups. Su causa es incrementar la diversidad en la industria de la tecnología, traer más programas de STEM para niños y jóvenes latinos en California y incrementar la participación cívica. El modelo de este Giving Circle es que cada miembro del Giving Circle da cuando menos $1,000 al año. Para la mayoría, los donativos los duplica la compañía para la que trabajan, ¿no? Todas estas compañías de tecnología, una maravilla es que su departamento de responsabilidad social los apoyan con un match. Y perdón porque esa palabra sí no me la sé en español, pero bueno, si uno da $1,000, la compañía da los otros $1,000. Se reúnen cada trimestre, otorgan 2 grants o 2 donativos grandes al año y son parte de este Latino Giving Circle Network. Otro ejemplo que tenemos aquí es Together Women Rise. Together Women Rise es un Giving Circle nacional a nivel de Estados Unidos que tienen más de 450 grupos alrededor del país. Su causa es erradicar la pobreza de las mujeres y niñas en el tercer mundo, en el mundo en desarrollo. Cada pequeño grupo de 10 o 20 mujeres se reúnen a cenar, ver un video o una presentación sobre alguna organización que aprueba el comité de grants, y todos los grupos unen sus donativos y los dan a la organización. Las contribuciones de cada miembro varía. Aquí no es que cada quien da una cantidad específica. Otro ejemplo, el Asian Women's Giving Circle. Está basado en Nueva York. Es un grupo que se dedica a apoyar la cultura y las artes, todo a través de una visión de tener una sociedad más justa y equitativa. Este Giving Circle apoya a proyectos liderados por artistas asiático-americanas y grupos comunitarios. Y aquí cada quien da diferentes cantidades. La idea es que el donativo sea significativo para cada quien. Entonces, ¿aquí qué hay? Hay una confianza entre el grupo, que eso es algo también súper importante en un Giving Circle. Un Giving Circle está basado en confianza. Los grants que dan es entre $5,000 y $10,000 anualmente, dan más o menos 10 donativos o 10 grants, y organizan eventos de fundraising para recaudar más fondos. O sea, algunos ¿no? Ejemplitos aquí y allá. Este movimiento, como Sondra mencionó, empezó en los 80s en Estados Unidos. En la última década se triplicaron, hay como 1,600 Giving Circles en Estados Unidos, en la última investigación que se hizo en el 2017. Hay estas redes o estos networks de Giving Circles que tienen una causa común. Estos son los principales Giving Circle Networks en Estados Unidos, que hay de diferentes, por ejemplo, los que están en medio Filanos, Impact 100, son networks de mujeres. También hay networks para jóvenes como Learning by Giving, que se hacen con jóvenes universitarios. Hay también los que son de diferentes grupos étnicos, como Latino Community Foundation, AP Giving Circles, que son para los asiático-americanos, Community Investment Networks, que son para la comunidad afroamericana, etcétera, etcétera. Y también hay basados en diferentes religiones. Amplifier es un network de Giving Circles judíos, American Muslim Community Foundation, musulmanes, etcétera, etcétera. Y además de todo, hay cientos de Giving Circles independientes y más que se crean cada día, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, estamos aquí porque nos encantaría que todos ustedes que están aquí fueran parte de este movimiento global. Siempre me encanta decir que los participantes de Giving Circles no son donantes normales, son donantes con esteroides, son superestrellas. ¿Por qué? Porque están mucho más involucrados. O sea, los miembros de Giving Circles hacen voluntariado, se involucran en la junta directiva o en el patronato de las organizaciones que apoyan. Es una incubadora de participación cívica estos Giving Circles. Son mucho más sociales, ofrecen la oportunidad de socializar y dar en comunidad. Están mucho más informados. ¿Por qué? Porque existe este aprendizaje sobre causas y sobre diferentes organizaciones. La mayoría de los Giving Circles, el 84%, donan a un nivel local. Vi una pregunta ahorita en el chat hace ratito que decía que muchas organizaciones pequeñas tienen problemas fondeando operaciones, ¿no? Los sueldos, las rentas, etcétera, etcétera, porque todo el fondeo que viene normalmente de la filantropía tradicional se hace, va hacia proyecto, ¿no? La maravilla de los Giving Circles es que muchas veces los Giving Circles vienen a llenar estos agujeritos de fondeo. Porque entre el Giving Circle y la organización que fondean se crea una relación muy personal. Se rompe esta lucha de poder entre yo soy el donante, tú eres el receptor del donativo, y hay una relación real. Es ¿qué necesitas? Y siempre les decimos a todos los miembros de Giving Circles, hay que ser un buen filántropo, ¿no? Hay que llegar con la organización. La organización sabe qué es lo que la comunidad necesita. Uno como donante, como miembro de un Giving Circle, lo que tiene que ser es ser esa herramienta para que puedan llegar los fondos hacia las organizaciones. Los Giving Circles para mí son la mejor manera de democratizar y diversificar a la filantropía. Y es una manera ideal para que mucha gente que nunca ha estado involucrada en filantropía entren. Es la puerta de entrada. ¿Y qué es lo que tiene que ver aquí en Latinoamérica, no? Este estudio es sobre que la filantropía de hoy se parece a los Estados Unidos de hace 25 años, ¿no? Y se ve que los hispanos no dan en comparación a la población blanca. ¿Eso significa que los hispanos o los asiáticos o los afroamericanos no somos generosos? No, para nada, para nada. solo significa que no hemos sido reconocidos como filántropos. ¿Por qué? Porque la forma en que hacemos filantropía es diferente. Entonces, ¿qué tiene que ver esto con nosotros como latinos, ¿no? como iberoamericanos? Hay que hacerlo de acuerdo a nuestra cultura. ¿Por qué los Giving Circles son una maravilla? Y tenemos, por eso Rosa tiene tanta emoción de llevarlos a Chile. Porque es divertidísimo ser parte de un Giving Circle. Es divertido, es adictivo. En el momento en que empiezas a ser parte de un Giving Circle, te reúnes con tus amigos, estudias una causa, decides a dónde dar y ves el impacto que tu donativo está teniendo junto a los demás, ya no puedes dejarlo. Ya no puedes dejarlo. Es social. Ahorita yo sé que por el tema de la pandemia no podemos estar juntos, no podemos reunirnos alrededor de una mesa, pero eso es algo muy importante en los Giving Circles, el poder reunirnos, compartir una copa de vino, compartir una comida, compartir historias. La maravilla también es que el modelo es tan flexible que, bueno, durante la pandemia dijimos, ¿qué vamos a hacer? Ahora no nos podemos ver. Pues todos en el Zoom, todos brincando en el Zoom y hablándole por teléfono a las organizaciones que apoyamos y decir de qué manera te puedo apoyar. Les comentaba yo un poquito sobre Latino Giving Circle Network. Hoy por hoy tiene 500 miembros en California, 22 Giving Circles han dado casi $2 millones. Gente como tú, como yo, como Rosa, como Ginny, como Sondra. Miembros los menores tienen entre 22 años, los mayores tienen más de 75, 80 años, vienen de diferentes industrias, tipos de educación, etcétera, etcétera, con algo en común que es este sentido de justicia y de generosidad. Aquí, por ejemplo, tenemos a esta cita de uno de los miembros que me encanta, ¿no? Que dice, somos un grupo de personas que se preocupan por el bienestar de la comunidad latina. Nos reunimos, nos reímos, compartimos nuestras historias. Juntos decidimos cómo apoyar a la comunidad de una manera significativa. Y la filantropía se vuelve divertida. Entonces, es esto, ¿no? Es el decir de qué manera estamos cambiando la narrativa de quién es un filántropo. No necesitas tener 65 años y ser un millonario o un billonario para ser considerado un filántropo. Filantropía significa amor a la humanidad y hay que volver a la raíz de la palabra. ¿Por qué el Latino Giving Circle Network es un hitazo? ¿Por qué Philanthropy Together, lo que estamos haciendo, apoyando estos networks de Giving Circles a nivel global? ¿Por qué son tan exitosos? Porque los Giving Circles es filantropía que está impulsada por la gente. Es activa, es fácil, es inclusiva, es social, es educacional y no es caridad, es cambio. Esto es extremadamente importante, cambiar esa forma de pensar, de decir, no estamos aquí para salvar a las organizaciones no gubernamentales, no. Las organizaciones no gubernamentales son las que saben qué es lo que necesita la comunidad. Uno como donante, uno como miembro de un Giving Circle está aquí para ser la herramienta para apoyar a estas organizaciones. Quiero ya nada más terminar un poquito diciéndoles, nosotros Philanthropy Together somos una organización que empezó con un grant de la fundación de Bill and Melinda Gates para apoyar el crecimiento de estos Giving Circles, el movimiento de Giving Circles a nivel global. Trabajamos con los 12 networks más importantes en Estados Unidos y poco a poco estamos trabajando con más grupos internacionales. Existe hoy por hoy una maravilla de organización en México que se llama Amigos de San Cristóbal, en Chiapas, que está empezando 6 Giving Circles, uno con un grupo de expats en Estados Unidos, uno con un grupo de mexicanos en la Ciudad de México, otro con un grupo de mexicanos en Chiapas, otro con un grupo de expats en Chiapas y 2 con comunidades indígenas. Comunidades indígenas apoyando a su propia comunidad. Entonces, esto también es ¿no? la flexibilidad y lo que me encanta de este modelo. Entonces, bueno, voy a acabar aquí. Por favor, ahí está mi contacto, mi website, lo que necesiten. Tenemos un website que se llama whatisagivincircle.com, que prometo que va a estar traducido en las próximas semanas, en donde explica muy bien el modelo y bueno, a sus órdenes. Gracias, Juan Carlos.
Sara, gracias por la presentación y rescato. Digo, hay tantos elementos valiosos que nos compartiste. Pienso mucho en ese elemento fundamental con el cual arrancaste. Valores y principios como un eje rector y elemento para lograr cohesión y coherencia de estos giving circles, que muchas veces suena hasta anticuado, desfasado, desconectado, ¿no? Pero hoy en día con estas crisis de liderazgo que hemos visto, pues qué importante rescatar ese elemento y sobre todo que lo pones como algo cercano, no se necesitan ni montos considerables para empezar a participar en los Giving Circles como un mecanismo alternativo de desbloqueo de fondos. Nos dejas con muchas ganas de consultar ese sitio, al igual que el resto de los panelistas. Voy a cambiar de nuevo al inglés para la parte de preguntas y respuestas. I'm switching back to English just to end up with the last part of this amazing summit. Hopefully we meet again in 2022 in person. I sure would like to do so. And the first question is from one of our participants, it's Gaby de la Torre, asks us, what are the main challenges, the top 3 challenges that women face as philanthropic leaders, as social investors? Who would like to take a swing on answering it?
I'll go first, and know that that my fellow panelists will chime in as well. I think it's just being. I think the biggest challenge is having, as you mentioned earlier, Juan Carlos, a seat at the table, and the opportunity to be able to express who they are and their full identity, and champion the causes and the values and the issues that they care about. But the first thing is that they have to get that chair at the table in order to do that. We all know that the talent's there, and as I mentioned, in terms of women across the globe, women's education, income, and wealth are all rising, and that's not going to stop. So and I think there's a new era in women's philanthropy that's starting to emerge, where women are using philanthropy as agency, and understanding how to use that and see it as a powerful tool to be able to express their values, to see the world that they want to see.
Thank you, Jeannie. Anyone else? Or should we move to the next question? Let's move to the next question. I believe, Rosa, you have the next one, right?
Yes. Sorry, because I have some internet problems. I'm in another room. Sorry about that. People are asking, you said something, dijiste algo, Sara. I can speak English or Spanish. I don't know right now what is much better, but Aleka said, Aleka is a person that is working since many years in Chile, doing many things with different organizations, and she's always with a problem that how do I get money to promote women and girls, and how all the women in Chile we can work together. She was asking, oh, how interesting is the Giving Circles, how interesting is the movement, but how can we get some funds in Chile to get this movement more important?
I love it, and I don't know if it's better for the interpreter if I continue in English or do I switch to Spanish? In English? Okay. So this is a great question, and I think something that Jeannie and Carmen and Sondra mentioned, right? The difference of how women give. And I think for me, the main one is we are collaborative. We work together. So Aleka, I would say like, let's, you know, you have the power. You as a group of women in Chile have the power to, you know, to start working together. Rosa is going to start putting some master classes about giving circles and really kickstart the movement of giving circles in Chile. Also, you know, someone just asked if there are giving circles in Mexico. There are nascent giving circles here and there. I know there's a giving circle in Cancun. I know Comunalia is going to put together a webinar in April. So, you know, there is this appetite because the movement is exploding, and especially in such a different, in such a difficult year, you know, like right now with the pandemic. Everybody is at home saying, what is mine to give? How can I engage in community? How can I do more? So you have the power right now to, after this summit, you know, pick up the phone and call 5 people and say, okay, I learned about this. Should we start one? That's what I want to say.
It's like that. It's like that. We have master class at 23. We have master class at 29. We have master class at 30 with different people, with different targets. We know it's new. Philanthropy like that is new. In Chile, we're working sometimes a lot in silos, and we need this movement to, as you said, women, we are more bottom up, we are more engaged. I'm working since 1 year, giving food every day and some weeks to people that are working in the grassroots organizations because they don't have food. And we were the women in Chile that we were working with ollas comunes, that's comedores, people that don't have to eat. We were the women working with them to collaborate, to give funds, to work, to speak with different businessmen. So it's happening many things. It's because I'm so happy about this summit, because Chile is changing. I think Latin America is changing. Before was like, oh, that let's do it without telling our name. Oh, let's do it not like the Americans. We don't want to expose our right hand, not to say what is doing their left hand, and these all things that was happening in Latin America. But it's another right now. It's another mindset. The next generations, they want to be there. They want to show that yes, it's my money. What is my money? Venture philanthropy is coming, impact investment is coming. I think women, we have right now a great opportunity because many families in America, Latin America, in Spain too, the philanthropy is leading by women. So they have to do these projects also, these new instruments, because as you said, philanthropy is time, treasure, talent, and women, we are more empathetic. It's not, I don't know the researches, but I see every day. I don't know if it's for good, for bad. Sometimes we engage too much, very emotional. You see me? Since 1 year working hard every day and going to with the persons to help, because I want to have more social investment. So I'm very happy with this summit because I want to show, everybody's asking right now in WhatsApp, is asking me questions. Or Rosa, as NGO, I can have a giving circle. You have to have because we don't have community foundations in Chile. It's starting right now to study the Center of Philanthropy in Chile, how to create community foundations. But people are asking me, oh, from an NGO, a family foundation, everybody, you can explain, perhaps Jenny, Carmen, Sondra, Sarah, how it's not, everyone can be a host of a giving circle, no? That's right. It's a movement. Yeah, Sarah.
Rosa, if I can add to that, I know Carmen mentioned, you know, the community foundations, and somebody just asked if giving circles can be hosted by community foundations, and the answer is yes, totally. So we at Philanthropy Together, we have an incubator of giving circles, and one is for host institutions. So it's called Launchpad for Hosts. And we just had our first group in January, and we had Amigos de San Cristobal from Mexico. We had the Community Foundation of Shanghai. You know, we have a community foundation in Germany. We have 15 community foundations in the US and 10 Jewish federations, because Jewish federations also host giving circles. So yes, the answer is yes. any community foundation could host giving circles. The secret is doing it right, so it's not a burden for the community foundation. It has to be, very well done in a very in a way that the community foundation really, that the giving circle is core in the DNA of the community foundation. It's not a fundraising strategy. That's very important to mention. It's not a fundraising strategy. It has to be about community building. And I'm happy, if people send me an email or go to our website, happy to share more information. And Carmen, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, just adding on to that is that understanding that the community foundation world is burgeoning in Latin America. Most of the giving circles that I've had the pleasure of helping to launch on the African continent were actually hosted by the nonprofit organization themselves. So that's another thing to consider, is that these were mission-oriented giving circles, and the host organization was the nonprofit who acted as the fiduciary for the funds. So they just accepted the funds because the mission was the same, and allowed the circle to grow from there. It helped on the African continent in particular. It may be helpful in some more rural areas for the folks who are on this call, where large institutions like banking or potentially foundations are yet to be part of the culture in the community. And for women in particular to have an affinity with a community-centered nonprofit organization or religious organization, or whoever is the leader of civic engagement in that community, to be the host.
Yes. I think Sondra is not there. Something happened with Sondra. I don't know. Something happened, perhaps technical issues. We have some other questions. Like many persons are asking. There is a person that I recognize in Holland, but she's from Venezuela, and asking, like, do you see that giving circles is a way to teach how to be philanthropists? And definitely yes. I think she's asking for people to help her in different things in Venezuela, and I think it's very important to tell them that this, giving circle is an instrument to show how to be philanthropists. No, if someone you can say something, Jenny, perhaps, or Sarah, Carmen.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeannie. Go ahead.
It's okay. Just wanted to share that the research shows that in our studies about giving circles, that not only is it a wonderful way to, as Sarah champions, to democratize giving, because you provide an accessible point of entry into how to give and giving together, which speaks to how that collaborative and collective effort. But more importantly, members who have been donors who've been members of giving circles for a very long time, they tend to give more and start to practice, much more strategic and intentional philanthropy on their own. So giving begets giving, and what giving circles do is it provides this for so many this first opportunity to find the joy of giving, and then learn strategies on how to be better donors. Carmen, you were going to say?
I echo what Jeannie has said. For a lot of, how should I say it? I have seen giving circles where women have taken leadership roles because of the encouragement of being part of the leadership of a circle. And more specifically, I have seen this happen time and time again in the community foundation world, where these women donors are, they then matriculate to board positions within the community foundation, which leads them to even more advocacy positions, including civic government positions, and talk about having a seat at the table. you know, where they weren't before, and their commitment is, you know, only increases over time. And they are also bringing more women into the fold as they are, you know, kind of rising into the ranks of civic engagement. So it's a really powerful tool, not only to learn about what your own individual philanthropic style or passion is, but to illuminate women leaders in different light than potentially they may have been viewed in the past.
If I can add a story about that, in the Latinos in Tech Giving Circle that I told you about, we had a young woman, she was 22 at the time, just finished college at Stanford University, you know, very prestigious university, but she was coming from very humble beginnings. She was from, originally from Colombia, immigrated to Florida when she was a kid. Her mom was working as a janitor, so cleaning a middle school, and had another job. So 2 jobs for a single mom. For this young woman, a teacher really believed in her when she was in high school. And thanks to that teacher inspiration and everything, she went to go to Stanford University. After she graduated from Stanford, she started working in the tech industry. And somebody told her about the Giving Circle. And she said, you know, I'm just starting my career. You know, giving $84 a month is not little. It's not little money. It's a lot of money for me because it's just my first job. But it's never too early to start giving back. Because if my mother and I were, you know, a product of the help of many nonprofit organizations like the ones that the Giving Circle is supporting. So I think something super important that I forgot to mention is that we should never assume, we should never make assumptions of who can give and who cannot give, because you will be surprised. You know, the generosity of people, and then, you know, how those young people, young leaders, the leadership positions that they will come to get. Right now, this woman, she is about 28, and she is just, she's a partner of one of a very amazing venture capital firms here in Silicon Valley. So, you know, it's, I feel proud. I feel like the, you know, like the crazy Tia, but, you know.
Sondra, perhaps you can tell us something, because you were, Sondra is there, perhaps she wants to tell something about what we are speaking about. Microphone, Sondra.
You're muted.
There, I'm okay. I just wanted to, I'm sorry, I ran out of juice. I'm not at my own home or desk. But we have an interesting giving circle in Traverse City. It's a dining giving circle. So you bring at least $100 in a check and a dish to pass to a beautiful house. We do it twice a year. We raise about $20,000. And it's the one that I said that we have raised more than ever before during this pandemic. But the thing is, we feel, I'm tagging on to Sarah, we feel so wonderful to be able to help these people. And we actually have them come to our meetings and tell us what a difference we made in their lives. So it's such a great feeling to know that you are doing something important, and somebody will turn out to be 28 years old and be as successful as Sarah's woman.
Thank you very much, Sondra. I believe that we have room for one more question from Silvia Bueso, who asks us, what makes a giving circle to work better than another? What are the key elements that are crucial from your experience, from your point of view? Who would like to take a swing?
Well, since I've been gone, may I?
Please do, Sondra.
Well, what makes it so very, very special is again, getting back to some of the 60s, but the collaboration, knowing you're doing something with other people, and also the pooling of the money. And one contribution, when joined with 40 other contributions, makes such a difference in the way that you can have impact. And I also like to think about the fact that they help teach women to be not only just philanthropic leaders, but leaders, and to get a place at the table, to have a place at the table, so that they can bring, so we can bring our very special interests and situations to the attention of the other people at the table. I don't think that men necessarily say we're not going to pay any attention to women. I just don't think they think about it until we're sitting there helping them think about it. Anybody else have a?
Thank you, Sandra.
What?
I would say that you know, why how a giving circle is more successful, or what it makes it successful, I think it's also this issue about trust, right? Trusting each other, the relationship that you create among the giving circle members, and also the relationship that giving circle creates with the projects or the organizations that they are funding. The more trusting that relationship is, the more real, the more open, the more successful that giving circle will be.
Well, we don't have more questions, Juan Carlos? I don't think so, no?
I don't think so, but you have our contact, so we'll make sure to send them to panelists, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Yes, we are in YouTube. There is everything recording. We are going to send the recording to everybody that wants to have it. And I think it's the time. We are closing. We are closing. We are going to be British. We are not going to be Latin right now. We are going to be British. So on time. And yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, American Embassy. Thank you, everybody, Minister of Women. Thank you, all these great speakers that they helped me. When I called them like 2019, oh my God, what is this? I want to do this in Chile. Please, oh Jenny, look, I'm from Empatthy here in Chile. I love what is happening with giving circles and women in philanthropy. Sandra, please help me. And you are here, Carmen, and all of you. Thanks and more thanks. I'm very, very happy with this in this month, Women's Month, to do this in this week where the research was released. That was coincident, that was not prepared. So very happy for that too. I'm very happy because I believe there is we are speaking since many months, no, that philanthropy is changing with COVID. I couldn't ask that question to Sandra, but was a question about that. I couldn't. With COVID, the philanthropy is more visible. It's more visible. I see that. I think we are in a moment that we have to work together. The world is very unequally, and there is a lot of money. And with money well spent, the changes can be very, very important, very systemic. So please, collaboration is radical. Giving Circle is very important. Women, we can have a very important role with Giving Circle, Chile, Spain, Venezuela, all Ibero-America, of course in the States, and of course in Europe. Thank you to all the Empathy community, all the people that are sending me WhatsApp and everything. I can be with the WhatsApp and I can be with the conference. And thank you, Juan Carlos, the best driver I could have. With the perfect English. I didn't know you have so perfect English, Juan Carlos. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, all the community, Empathy community, and all the work community. We can do many things. We have to work together, not in silos, please. Important, very important. And thank you all the community from the States. I know Sandra sent many emails, Sarah, Jenny, Carmen, to have people from the States listening to us and to know that we exist here in Chile. So thank you, everybody. A clap. Thank you.
Check Philanthropy Women tomorrow, because Maggie May is covering this. So all of you check Philanthropy Women, the publication.
Yes.
Will
Thank
do.
you. Thank you, Mati. Thank you, all the team in Empathy. And thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend. Buenos fin de
Thank you.
semana. Gutes Wochenende. Bon weekend.